This is the first of our summer series focusing on accessFlow. We're going to be tackling accessibility debt today, a very important subject matter and one that is really timely for us as well to share with you a lot of new innovations and product updates that we have on our side. So, with that, I'm going to launch a quick poll, and we want to know why you're here today. So, I'll just launch that in a moment. Is it because your backlog keeps getting deprioritized? Is it because issues show up after launch and then you have to scramble to fix them? There's no one on your team who really owns accessibility. We've heard that one before. Or is it that you're managing multiple websites and it's simply too difficult to keep track? We'll give it a few more seconds for everyone to respond. And I'll give a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's see what the results were. So the majority of you have said that no one on your team really owns accessibility. That's interesting. But also, I see that there's a result here that backlog keeps getting deprioritized. So we're going to be talking a little bit about each of these areas and what happens when you have a platform or a solution or even the workflows and tools to be able to address that. So we'll move on to the next slide. Why are you here today? Well, accessibility is a growing topic for so many different businesses, but specifically in the digital domain, we're seeing that the number of errors per web page, which has gone down over the past several years, has actually spiked up 10% in 2025 to 2026. So now there's an average of 56 accessibility errors on the average web page based on a research done by WebAIM of 1 million web pages. We also found that the total number of accessible websites across the web has actually increased. So we have gone up from 3% to 4%. Wonderful. But the number of errors still continues growing. And that's an interesting subject. There's a lot of different reasons for it. AI accelerating change has been one of them, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Another key ingredient here is that we've done research with e-commerce businesses and found that 72% are confident in accessibility, in their accessibility efforts. And that's an interesting statistic because then when we ask them, have they validated it, less than half have validated the results. So there's still this sort of amorphous area within accessibility of wanting to do the right thing, thinking you're doing the right thing, but also knowing that there's a gap there. And that gap is quite big if we think about the 95.9% of websites that aren't accessible. So, with that, I'll hand it over to our speakers today, Gil Toledo and Nick Ingleton. Really excited for you guys to hear from them.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here with you to talk about accessFlow and accessibility today. So I'm Gil. I'm the product manager for accessFlow. I've been with accessiBe for the past 3 years, and I've been working exclusively on accessFlow since its very beginning. Now, before moving into product management, I was actually a developer, a software developer for about 10 years. And one thing that I remember very clearly is what I felt like when work landed on my plate that wasn't directly related to the product I was building, whether it was security, compliance, performance, or of course, accessibility. Those tasks often lived outside my normal day-to-day workflows. They were harder to track, harder to prioritize, and disconnected from the tools and processes I used to work as a developer. So that experience really influenced me and how we built accessFlow all together, by the way, with our developers that needs to, of course, take care of accessibility as well. And this is what we're going to talk today. Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Gil, and Sapir as well. Happy to speak with you folks today about accessFlow. Similar to Gil, my background is in engineering, a little bit more back end, but also front end. And I do think accessibility was kind of always a tough thing to prioritize, with some of the other things competing for it. And it didn't always flow naturally into the work we were doing. Part of why accessFlow is a product designed to make that a little bit easier. Looking forward to speaking with you guys today about exactly how accessFlow can help. Thank you.
So what we're cover today. Today we're going to talk about why accessibility always become a debt and left behind. Nick and I will show you accessFlow at a glance, talk about some of our best features, and following that, doing a live demo, and then we'll leave some questions, sometimes the questions. Thank you. Let's start. So the first step with handling accessibility is detection. accessFlow continuously scans websites and web applications against more than 150 WCAG rules. Rather than relying on periodic audits, we're monitoring accessibility all the time as code, content, and user experience evolve. This means teams can identify issues as they are introduced, whether that's through a new feature release, content update, or design changes. The goal here is simple: to make accessibility visible and automatic and proactive. The next step is to actually act on the issues found. Finding the issues is only part of the problem. The real challenge is fixing them efficiently. And that's why accessFlow provides prioritized findings along with code level guidance to help developer understand exactly what's the problem and what needs to be changed and where. For repetitive or common issues, automation can assist with remediation, while built-in task tracking ensures accountability and collaboration across teams, developers, designers, the project owners, of course. The objective overall is to reduce the time between discovering an issue and actually resolving it and get it to production. The final step is maintenance. Accessibility isn't something you complete once and forget. It's a journey. It's a never-ending journey, like our products. Every release, content update, or each deployment can introduce potential new issues. So by integrating accessibility monitoring into CI/CD pipelines or any development workflows development teams have, they can catch regression early and receive alerts when new issues appear. This shifts accessibility from a reactive compliance exercise to a sustainable engineering practice that's built into the development lifecycle and your day-to-day job. The entire workflow eventually is designed to create a continuous loop, detect issues automatically, resolve them with actionable guidance, and maintain compliance through ongoing monitoring and changes. The developer's dilemma, something that I, again, feel very close to. So these are the 4 patterns we heard from dev teams, including our own. Not teams that don't care about accessibility, just teams that are building their products quickly, the way everyone wants to do. So first of all, issues surface after code ships. Accessibility competes with every sprint task, and there's no real structure to protect it. Testing sits outside the build pipeline, and when issues are flagged, it's only showing what's wrong, not also what's the fix. You can notice that all of those 4 problems have one thing in common. No one said we have too many issues. They just said they don't know which one mattered the most, what's the real problem, and they know that not everything is equally urgent. Nothing gets done because of those problems. So the fix is a system for detecting issues with their severity, prioritizing them, giving the actionable fixes, not just to create a longer backlog with so many issues.
We also have a poll here for everyone to share what it is that is holding you back. So let me launch that poll now, and we'll give you a minute to share the reasons that you might be challenged with accessibility. It's fun watching the results in real time. I'm really excited to share with you what we get in just a few more seconds. Okay, thank you to everyone who participated. So, Gil, what do you think about the results that we're seeing right now?
It fits exactly what we feel, I think. The first one, of course, in my opinion, is hard to prioritize in the sprint. We feel it also. We developed the platform, but developers don't always attend to the accessibility issues unless it's actually in the sprint, of course. So I really relate to that one. But we'll talk about all of them, of course.
Mhm. And in the meantime, in the chat, I'd love to also know from those of you who are attending, no one selected that accessibility requirements aren't clear. So I think that's really fascinating, and hopefully you can share some insights with us in the chat as well.
Okay, let's continue. So accessFlow at a glance. These are only some of our features, of course, the feature we think that are the ones that advances everyone in the fastest and easiest way towards accessibility. accessFlow, first of all, helps customers to manage accessibility across all their website and application from a single platform. It starts with the automated scanning, running on an agreed schedule to continuously scan your digital assets and identify accessibility issues. The platform not only surfaces unique issues, but it also highlights issues that recur across multiple pages, helping teams to understand the true scope of a problem and to get them into a better focus while they work. Next, accessFlow prioritizes issues based on their impact on usability. This impact, or what we call in the platform severity, is terms we define together with our accessibility expert, with real human testing and understanding what really impacts the user. So the severity is really, really important to us in terms of prioritization. From there, teams receive clear remediation guidance and can track progress through resolution. And because sorry. And because accessibility is an ongoing effort, accessFlow continues to monitor over time to catch new issues and help ensure accessibility remains part of every release. Nick will now share some details on our more technical developer tools that build to take accessibility into the software development lifecycle.
Yes. So in terms of our more technical tools, we do have an SDK that enables you to bring accessibility testing either into your local environment or actually run accessibility tests as part of your CI/CD pipeline. So that can be a really powerful way to enforce accessibility, ensuring that any code that does go live already is accessible. We also offer an MCP, that's a model context protocol. That's a way of bringing issues that have been identified on your site into your engineer's coding environment so that they have that information to work with in conjunction with an AI, as well as potentially are able to leverage that as part of agentic workflows where potentially accessibility issues are being entirely autonomously addressed. And I think at this point in time, Sabir, are you going to say something?
Yeah, I think now is your chance to shine. We'll have you do the demo.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and share my screen then. All right. Is everyone seeing this all right?
Yes.
Beautiful. So this is the main dashboard view of accessFlow. Gil's kind of already touched on this, but In summary, accessFlow works by navigating to your site on a regular basis. That could be monthly, bi-weekly, weekly, and then navigating through all available web pages and then auditing that content for conformance with the WCAG. It's going to identify issues ranging from extreme down to low. Extreme and high issues tend to be issues with screen readers or keyboard navigation. And really the top priority within the WCAG and the most important thing for ensuring a site is accessible. The medium and low are still important and often have to do with kind of best practice or optimal accessibility. Based on the number of pages you have and the amount of issues that have been identified and their ranking, you'll get an overall site accessibility score, kind of weighting those issues across how many pages they're occurring on and that sort of thing. We typically try and recommend people get their scores to kind of 85, 90 plus to be conformant, but the higher the better. Over here, we can also see issues being tracked throughout time. Companies can identify if there's been a release and there's a sudden spike in issues. Maybe they need to put additional governance in place or even roll back some of those changes that were made, right, to make improvements to the code underlying things. So this is just the view for one single domain that's being audited, though we do have kind of multi-domain management. If we come in here, we can take a look at what that looks like. So here I've got a plan that goes up to 10 domains, so I can easily add and remove as needed, deactivating or deleting, and add additional ones kind of as required. And I have this high-level overview on how each of these domains is performing. And I can always go back in to get a more detailed breakdown of how that particular domain is performing accessibility-wise, or even come in here under the Explore page for the true granular breakdown of the issues that have been raised regarding this particular site. From this screen, you can order and filter issues in lots of different ways. One thing I want to call out that Gil had touched on earlier is we do identify if an issue is unique or recurring. A unique issue is what it sounds like, just happens once on your site, whereas a recurring issue is happening multiple times. That might be a reused component or template, or maybe an issue in your header or your footer. To the extent possible, we're trying to make accessibility as efficient a process to achieve. So, an efficient thing to prioritize. So by identifying kind of high and extreme severity issues that are occurring multiple times, you can prioritize those and address them and really get to conformance as quickly as possible. If we take a look at what one of these issues actually contains and get kind of a more granular breakdown. So we'll provide a screenshot to facilitate locating it on the page. We've got a description based on the WCAG here, and also a link to get more information if you want. We'll explain how to fix the issue in plain English, give you your rendered HTML, and then also provide a suggested fix. So in this case, changing a paragraph element into a navigation element and adding an ARIA label. To the extent possible, we try and make these fixes as clear as they can be. We'll also provide the selector to facilitate locating it on the page or within your code base, as well as the web page that it was found on. And you can navigate to it if need be. With one of these issues, you can collaborate in the platform on that issue, adding comments as needed or assigning to other team members. You can also export it into kind of standard ticketing systems. I've got this set up with Jira, but we also link up with Asana, ClickUp, many more. And notably, if you do export these things into that system so that you can add them to your sprints, if you then mark it as resolved in Jira or Asana, that's going to back propagate into the platform here, also mark it as resolved. So you need to do that in two places. Importantly, when you mark something as resolved, you then have the opportunity to verify the fix. It would cause a rescan of just that page, looking for whether or not that issue has been addressed. This is a really important way for engineers who aren't that familiar with accessibility to learn and kind of engage, to have that real-time validation on whether or not the fixes they're making are actually fixes. Importantly, you don't necessarily actually even have to press that verify though. You can just wait for the next scheduled scan, and it will verify at that point in time. You can always reopen an issue or even dismiss it if it's some content that you're sunsetting on your site. Maybe you just don't even need to be concerned about it, right? So that is also an option. That is most of the kind of core ticket workflow. In terms of other ways you can take a look at the issues that have been identified, you can also view things based upon rules. Maybe if you want to come in here, address all missing alt text on your site, you can come find that rule and address those in one fell swoop. You can also view based upon web page. You know your site's best. You know the highest traffic content. You can come in here, look for that page. Maybe it's your home page. Take a look at what the issues are that have been identified at that, and then prioritize those, right? Because this is the content most people are going to see if it's the home page. Importantly, you can also re-audit this content as necessary, or even visualize it to see exactly where those issues are on the screen. So I think my internet connection is just a little slow at the moment. But we can see here, all these green dots are issues that have been resolved, and all these red dots are issues that are still live and need to be addressed. So you come in here, kind of take a look around, click on any of these to get that issue panel that we saw before, and then address them as needed. Let me go back to this kind of main explore page. That's the main ways we can kind of view issues. One other feature I wanted to highlight for you guys while we've got you here is our journeys feature. This is a really powerful tool for getting additional coverage for any dynamic processes on your site or any kind of key customer journeys that people on your site might be doing. So this is similar to an integration test for those who might be familiar with that, but it's a little bit simpler to set up. You can record a journey using your browser extension, and you go ahead and just replicate what you think people on your site are doing. So that might be on an e-commerce site like this, selecting a product, adding it to cart, going to that cart, and checking out. Go ahead and end that recording there. And here are all the elements I interacted with along the way. When accessFlow performs its cyclical audit on a regular basis, it's going to replicate all of these steps. Any content that's exposed then will be audited for conformance. This can be a really effective tool for getting additional coverage for kind of more dynamic things that depend upon what your users are doing for that content to be seen and audited. They're not always critical depending upon how your site is built. I think one other feature we wanted to touch on quickly was going to be auto resolve. So this is a way of making fixes to your rendered site from a user perspective without actually making fixes in your source code. So this is a small script that you would embed in the HTML of your site. It would run when the page loads and make fixes just from a user perspective without that fix living in your source code. Critically, not all issues are eligible for it, but anything with this little blue star here is eligible for auto resolve. I could come in here, select all of these, and apply auto resolve if I wanted to, or be more deliberate about which ones I want to do it for. This is a really effective way of triaging issues, right? So, you add a new content to the site, you don't have time to immediately address the accessibility issues on there, address what you can with auto resolve, and then down the line, maybe turn auto resolve off and address those in your source code, which is the most recommended way at the end of the day. You might also notice this little gray icon, which means that it's being remediated by Access widget. So on this particular site, it both is being audited by accessFlow and using our Access widget, which is another product we offer that makes these kinds of remediations as well. If I go ahead and reset these filters, you can see everything with this gray icon being addressed by the widget. It's got a little bit of additional coverage. And there's a really good synergy between these two things, where the widget is kind of serving as a safety net, addressing everything that it can. I could come in here, though, see anything that isn't being addressed by the widget, prioritize that. And then when I have the bandwidth, come back in here and address these things that are being addressed by the widget also in my source code, which is that most recommended way at the end of the day. All right, so that was most of what I wanted to show you guys in the core platform. But I think another thing we were excited to talk about with you guys today is the MCP and kind of show exactly what that looks like. So if we come over here into my coding environment, we can see a conversation I had with an AI using the MCP. So if we kind of take a look up top here, I asked it to get the most urgent accessibility issues in my code base here and organize them into a table. It went ahead and then kind of retrieved these 5 most urgent issues. I looked through, we've got a decorative content issue, an alt text issue, page title issue, a few different things. I asked it to get the details of that alt text issue and locate it in my code. So it retrieved that information, got the issue ID, the severity, the pages that it was on, the CSS selector that was being used. It located it in my code, right away. So it's in this page over here that you'll see on the left, right? But this is the kind of rendered bit that it was interested in. And then I asked it to make the accessFlow suggested fix, right? So in this case, since it's an alt text issue, I just needed to add one little line, right? Smartwatch with white band on white background, right? That alt text was missing from that image, critical issue for someone who's using a screen reader. And now that's there and I can push this code and have that issue be addressed. Notably, I could also then ask accessFlow to resolve that issue from here if I wanted to. Now, this was a very straightforward fix. I maybe didn't even need to use AI to achieve this. But that's also how easy some of these fixes are. And that's why some teams are exploring actually leveraging the MCP as part of agentic workflows, where they have an agent calling that endpoint, getting these urgent issues, making fixes, and putting up a pull request that they can review without them having to make any changes on their own. We're also actually kind of exploring a feature down the road called access code that would help to assist in that agentic workflow. That was most of what I kind of hope to share with you folks today. So Pierre, Gil, anything else I should touch on, or good to kind of pass it back over to you?
No, that was great, Nick. Thank you. Maybe I'll just add one thing. We talked about the fact that developers, they don't really want to do accessibility. It's not the thing that they signed up for. They have another product to build. And I think that the MCP is probably the easiest and fastest way for them to solve accessibility issues. And I can tell you that one of our customers solves over 1,000 accessibility issues in a month, which is a lot more than others that are not leveraging the MCP. So it's really, really an efficient feature to use. Great, let's continue. So one of the biggest reasons accessibility journeys or projects struggle is that issues are discovered most of the time too late in the development lifecycle. So without accessFlow, the process is usually more reactive. Teams build a feature, deploy to production, and only then discover accessibility issues. Those issues then get added to the backlog and compete with other priorities and often get pushed from sprint to sprint. Now, before accessFlow, accessibility becomes something, with accessFlow, accessibility becomes something everyone cares about, but nobody still has the time to address. Now, we shift accessibility left and make it a part of your development process itself. As developers write the code, our MCP integration can receive accessibility issues directly within the IDE, providing all the information required to fix it, or even to extend it to your AI tool to fix it by itself. So you can actually fix the code before the code is committed. Then, as a part of the CI/CD pipeline, automated checks catch anything that may have been missed before it reaches production and lets you decide if to release it as is or to fix those issues before. So rather than creating a separate stream of accessibility work, issues flows directly into your existing development workflows and sprint planning. And the result is that accessibility gets fixed before release instead of after release, reducing remediation costs, reducing noise, and preventing technical debt. And most of all, ensuring that your code actually ships accessible with every new version of your product or every feature or design change. Now, the main messaging here is simple. Instead, finding accessibility issues after your users encounter them, accessFlow helps you to resolve them while you're still building the features.
And here, kind of taking a look at what it looks like to get ramped up with accessFlow. We have a pretty quick onboarding process. You'll have an assigned product support specialist who will help get you up and running, get that first scan, and get all that content audited. At that point in time, we'll hand things over to you. You can take a look at what those results are and then kind of prioritize in the way we discussed earlier. Looking at those extreme high severity issues, the ones that are occurring on the most number of pages and on kind of your highest traffic pages. You can address what's possible with auto resolve and then kind of prioritize from there. There might be a little bit of a backlog you have at that point in time, but within a couple of months, you'll get into more of a steady state where it's just about maintaining accessibility. And you can integrate in the CI/CD to have that accessibility even earlier in development and kind of shift left so that issues aren't even appearing within the accessFlow platform. They're just being addressed earlier on, right, as part of that CI/CD pipeline. And so those issues that do end up on the platform, you can leverage the MCP and really efficiently solve them as quickly as possible.
And just also highlighting a customer that we recently did a case study with that's going to go live soon, where they were able to triple their accessibility score in under 3 months. So very exciting and powerful stuff.
Okay, so before we start wrapping up, I want to leave you with some, few key takeaways from our discussion today. So first, accessibility depth is real. Most organizations aren't starting from zero, right? Your product is already built in some way. And accessibility is not the first thing you do as a small startup. So you already got a lot of code. You're dealing with sometimes with years of accumulated accessibility issues spread across multiple website application. So the goal isn't a perfection overnight. It's creating a process to systematically reduce that depth and prevent it from happening in the future. Second, the fastest way to make progress is, of course, to focus on severity first. Not every issue has the same impact on users. So by prioritizing the issues that affect usability the most, teams can deliver meaningful improvements, those that really makes an impact to users much faster and avoid getting overwhelmed by the size of the backlog. I'll tell you that we have customers that have tens of thousands of issues on day one, so it can be overwhelming. Third, the biggest challenge isn't usually identifying the issues. I mentioned it before. It's the gap between when the code is written and when it reaches production. So, and when it reaches production. The later issues are discovered, the more expensive and disruptive they become to fix. And finally, when accessibility becomes a part of your development workflow, it stops being a separate initiative. It becomes another quality gate, another quality standard that builds into how teams design, build, test, and release software. That's ultimately the vision behind accessFlow, helping organizations move from a reactive approach for accessibility to a proactive, continuous accessibility practice.
Thanks, Gil. I think we're inching towards the end of the webinar right now. So last chance for everyone to share their questions in the Q&A. And Nick or Gil, were there any final words you wanted to say before that?
Yes, I can add again. I introduced myself in the beginning, and I think that's the best part of me as the product manager of this product. There's a lot of things that developers like to do and a lot of things they don't like to do. I think that I'll start by saying developers don't like to work. They always work harder in order to work less in some way. And developers in the audience, I bet, know what I mean. Always creating processes, doing things more efficiently, so they kind of work less, although you never do. So this is the real thing we're doing here with accessFlow, is trying to get something that is scary, like accessibility. If any of you ever opened the WCAG guidelines, so you won't be surprised. They are hard to understand. They have very long text, and creating like a barrier between the actual work that needs to be done and the things that you actually want to do. So again, I hope that with accessFlow, this is what we're doing. We're reducing the noise, we're reducing the concern, and trying to get you focused on the things that matters the most, and give you the best tools to help you become as accessible as you can in the most simple way, integrated to your workflows.
That was fantastic. Thanks, Gil. Um, okay, so we're ready for questions. We have a question about pricing, which I've already passed your name along to our sales team. They'll be in touch to create tailored pricing depending on your site size and the specific features that might benefit you. Gil and Nick, is that an accurate way of sharing that? Meaning the pricing is tailored to specific features and what benefits the user the most, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. And we have another question here, which I found very interesting. Wondering how accessFlow can be used for mobile and TV apps. Is that something that we're already doing, or is that not in our pipeline at the moment?
So mobile native apps we're not doing at the moment. But in general, accessFlow can work on any web application. So if your native mobile app is a web application behind the scenes, it can support that. And the same for TV apps, which honestly I'm less familiar with. So I don't know. I know there are a lot of native apps that have a web app underneath, but I'm not sure about TV apps.
It's really interesting. Something for us to look into as well.
Mhm.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, we'll end it here. We'll be in touch with everyone after the webinar with the recording, and we're looking forward to sharing this information with you and hearing your feedback as well. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.